Jeremiah 29:11 reads, "For the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, plans for good, not evil, to give you a future and a hope." I was born on May 10th, 1990. For most of my life, my mom was a single mother. I never really knew my father due to the fact that he was constantly on the road as a long-haul truck driver and the fact that my parents divorced when I was 5 years old. When I was born, I was a very healthy newborn. Then out of nowhere, when I was 6 months old, while we were visiting my grandparents, my body just went limp like a sock monkey. Then I started clenching my right fist and letting go over and over again. My mom didn't know what to do. She called for my grandfather and asked him, "That's not normal, is it?" First thing he said is, "Get him into the car, we gotta get him to a hospital." My grandfather literally broke every driving law in the state of Kansas to get me to the hospital, and by the time we got to the hospital, the right side of my face was twitching along with my right arm and leg. After doing some tests, the doctor found out that I was having a seizure and he needed to stop it. After doing a spinal tap to remove some fluid from my lower back, the seizure stopped. Now, I had that seizure for 5 hours, ladies and gentlemen. Soon after my first seizure, a few doctors and other medical workers told my family they need to put me in a hospital for mentally disabled people and move on with their lives. That really angered my family. My mom told all of them, "Heck no! Are you kidding me? No! He is my son and I am going to take care of him." When my mom made that decision, the doctors told her that she could not work outside of our home, that she had to be with me 24/7. Every 3 months I would have another seizure. Each seizure would be a little more violent than the previous one. My mom was told over and over again by multiple doctors that I was going to die within 3 months after each seizure. My mom was getting sick and tired of all the negatives that the doctors were telling her, and she was thinking that the doctors were guessing that I was going to die because somehow I kept surviving. My mom wanted to find me a different doctor, one that looked at all the positives instead of the negatives. She heard from a friend that there were some great children's doctors in Denver, Colorado. She called Denver, but they said that neurology was not their specialty. However, they told her about a great doctor in Kansas City at KU Medical Center. My mom drove me up to KC to meet the doctor. He took one look at me and he started talking about all the positives. He told my mom, "Your baby's going to write his own autobiography someday." My mom felt very comfortable with that doctor and decided he was going to be my doctor from now on. At 18 months old, I had another seizure, but this time it was different. My mom noticed that my entire crib was soaked with sweat and my skin was this grayish color. My mom called the doctor, but at first the doctor thought my mom was overreacting, but she wasn't and she knew she wasn't. She told the doctor, "I am driving him to the hospital and you are going to be there waiting for us when we get there." When we got to the hospital, my doctor took one look at me and said, "Yep, something's different." After doing some tests, he found out that I had a seizure so violent that it caused me to have a stroke. Later on, I would be diagnosed with cerebral palsy in the form of many congenital neurological migration deficits that I cannot pronounce. Over the next few years, I was in and out of hospitals. Then in early January 1994, at the age of 3, even my positive doctor thought I did not have very much time left to live. He told my mom I would be dead within a few months. So he sent my family and I to go on a Make-A-Wish trip. And when the Make-A-Wish Foundation came to see us, I told them I wanted to go see Mickey Mouse. Towards the end of that same January, we flew down to Orlando, Florida and spent a week at Disney World. But again, I somehow survived. Now, from my own personal experiences, spending so much time in hospitals and doctors' offices can drive one crazy. As I was growing up, I tried to find something to do to get me away from all the chaos and drama surrounding my life. I knew that due to my condition that football was not an option. A helmet-to-helmet hit will kill me. So with football out of the picture, I discovered what I wanted to do. I found out at an early age I was very good at the two sports of baseball and basketball. I've been around sports my entire life. I come from a baseball family. Everybody in my family has played either baseball or softball at one point in time in their lives, and I wanted to continue that tradition. In the summer of 1997 and 1998, I played t-ball and machine pitch baseball for teams in Hutch. Now, even though I do come from a baseball family, basketball was my main sport. I would spend hours every day shooting hoops in our driveway. I was so good that I was hitting three-pointers off of a 10-foot goal by the time I was 8 years old. I've always wanted to play for a team, and when I asked my mom if I could play for a team, she said, "Of course." In the winter of 1998, I played one season for the Hutchinson YMCA. Now, I didn't know how good I was at the sport of basketball until I played against other kids. That was when my dream of winning a state championship came alive. When bullies at school found out about my wild dream, they started calling me names behind my back. They said I was never going to be fast enough, strong enough, I didn't have what it takes, that I was cocky, selfish, and a dreamer. And what those bullies said didn't bring me down. I used what they said as fuel. Every time a bully said that I was nuts, it just made me want to work twice as hard. Now, after playing basketball for 1 year and baseball for 2 years, I underwent 2 different operations at Kansas City at KU Medical Center. The first operation was on my head. Surgeons tried what's called brain mapping. Surgeons cut open the skin on my head, drilled 19 holes into my skull, and put what's called pegs inside the holes. The pegs were connected to wires that went to a machine that showed when I had a seizure and where it was coming from. But that was the wrong operation. What they should have done was just place a net on the left side of my skull to track the seizures. For the second operation, the surgeons went back into my head, took all the pegs out, and put a box in my chest called a vagal nerve stimulator. The box came with 2 very strong magnets that I would wave over the box when I or my mom knew I was having a seizure. But both of those operations were unsuccessful. Of course, my mom was very unhappy with the surgeons in Kansas City. She had put her trust in surgeons that had performed 2 different operations on me that didn't do anything to help me. After that, she vowed to never take me back to Kansas City for any more operations. By February of 2000, I was averaging 6 or 7 seizures an hour and over 156 seizures a day. I was taking an average of 17 pills per day, and my mom knew from when the doctors told her that I was going to die if these seizures did not stop. My mom found out from my best friend Kevin's mom about the surgery that helped stop Kevin's seizures and where he had the operation. Lo and behold, I found myself on an airplane heading for St. Paul, Minnesota to have a couple of more operations done at Children's Hospital and Clinics. The first operation was on February 22, 2000. Surgeons went back into my head, only this time they removed the entire left side of my brain. What the surgeons did for the second operation is they went back into my head and put what's called a shunt in the back of my head. The shunt tubing goes from the back of my head all the way down to my abdomen, and if I don't have it, I cannot survive. Now, both of those operations were very, very successful and ended up saving my life. After my operation, I had to go through physical, occupational, and speech therapy at Hutchinson Hospital. When we went to therapy, my mom always parked into the handicap spots, and I couldn't figure out why. I was still pretty out of it from the operation, and I didn't realize my mom literally had to carry me everywhere we went. So one day, after she parked in one of the handicapped spots, I asked her, "Who's handicapped?" My mom almost had tears of joy in her eyes as she said, "Well, nobody is. The doctors just let me park here because it's closer to the entrance door and we can get in and out of the hospital easier." That is our favorite story as mother and son. I was fresh out of life-saving surgery. I could not move any part of my body. All I could do was talk, and I didn't consider myself handicapped then, and I don't consider myself handicapped now. For a little over a year, I fought through physical therapy. Occupational and speech therapy took a little longer. A little while after my operation and therapy, I began to realize that I did not go to the hospital every week anymore because I wasn't having seizures anymore. That was when I knew I had gotten a second chance at life. But I found out that life wasn't so easy. 2 days before my 14th birthday, my mom's best friend, who was like another mother to me, had passed away due to injuries from a motorcycle accident. At 14 years old, I did not know how to handle a situation like that. So instead of talking to somebody about how I felt, I took the easy way out and handled it the dumbest way I could handle a loved one's passing. For 6 months, I hung out in the streets and I drank alcohol and did drugs. I was living this type of lifestyle until I got a rude awakening in December of 2004. I was at a party when the police were called after a fist fight had broken out between one of my friends and a guy we used to hang out with. After the cops had questioned the witnesses and myself in front of the house, they handcuffed the two guys that were fighting, put them in the back of a squad car, and took off. That was when I realized that if I kept living this type of lifestyle, I was going to completely destroy my life. I wanted to clean up my life, and after 3 months of suffering from withdrawal symptoms, I was able to kick my addiction with the help of my best friend Kevin and my family. I made my first sports comeback in late 2004 as a 7th grader playing basketball for Reno Valley Middle School. A year later, I moved to Whitewater and played for Remington Middle School. Then, as a freshman at Remington High School, I suffered a knee injury that nearly ended my career. I dislocated my left kneecap. As soon as the injury happened, I thought of two inspiring people, my older brother Jason and my older sister Sophie, when they played sports and how they had career-ending injuries. For both of them, it was a real devastating time, and for me, it was no different. When the doctors told me how bad the injury was, it felt like I was the last piece of the injury puzzle in my family. I quickly fell apart physically and mentally. After a while, I started to wonder if I could ever make it back onto the basketball court. For the first time in my life, I had questioned my motives. That was the start of a year and a half of hard times in my life. In that time, I tried to rejoin the high school basketball team for the 08-09 season, but I found out the hard way that my knee wasn't just as strong as it used to be. I lasted 1 week and then I quit the team. After I quit the team, I was not the greatest person to be around. Then I started having these suicidal dreams. One night after another, I would dream about killing myself. It got to a point where I was afraid to go to sleep. Then after a couple of weeks of having suicidal dreams, I thought to myself, killing myself wouldn't be such a bad idea. I knew I needed help, so I checked myself in a mental hospital in Newton, Kansas. On the third night I was there, I had a dream where I did kill myself, and when I saw my friends and family crying at my funeral, that one part of the dream saved me. I woke up from the dream crying. I had realized that if I really did kill myself, that would have left a huge hole in every one of my friends and family's hearts. I love my friends and family so much, and I didn't want to put them through that pain. After a few days after I got released, I made sure I apologized to all of my friends and family for ever thinking that way. I eventually did return to sports as a Special Olympian, and I accomplished my wildest dream by winning the 2009 State Basketball Championship. On my friend Kevin's 23rd birthday, I graduated from high school at the age of 20. That day was huge for my family and I. After everything that I had been through, graduating high school seemed like a far-fetched dream. When the big day finally came, it gave me goosebumps. Still does when I think about it. My grandfather wanted to come to my graduation so bad. We had talked for years about how cool it was going to be. But since he was in a nursing home and he was in a lot of pain that day, he couldn't make it to my graduation. I was pretty down until I saw my Uncle Mike with a video recorder. He was recording my graduation for my grandfather. Later on that day, we all went to the nursing home and watched my graduation with my grandfather. He couldn't get the smile off of his face. He was so proud of me. A few months later, in July, my grandfather passed away at the age of 71. At 71 years old, I felt like he was taken away from us way too soon. He was a big influence in my life. Since my father wasn't around when I was growing up, my grandfather was the closest father figure I had. I needed to get out of my mom's house and get a fresh start. By this time, Kevin had bought a house of his own and I wanted to move in with him. From day one that I moved in with Kevin, I was still an emotional mess. For the first 2 weeks I lived with Kevin, I didn't even leave the house. Then I relapsed on alcohol. For nearly a year, I walked around a very unhappy young man. I was drinking alcohol every day, and I was hanging out in the local bars, and after a while I couldn't even stand to see the face I saw in a mirror. I was digging myself deeper and deeper in a hole and had no way of digging myself out. Thankfully, I had a visit from my Uncle Mike and Aunt Jody in June of 2011. That day I was being careless as I was, and I opened up a few beers in front of them. By the time I opened up the third beer, my Uncle Mike gave me a look as if he was asking me, "What are you doing?" Realizing what I was doing, I thought to myself, uh-oh. He sat me down and had a long conversation with me. The conversation that my uncle and I had changed me. It gave me a huge wake-up call. I realized that I needed to turn my life around. I poured that beer I opened down the sink, got rid of all the alcohol in the house, and I haven't taken a drink of alcohol since. In the summer of 2012, when I was 22, Kevin asked me if I wanted to go to church with him. And he said, "You know something? I would." During the service, I sat there and I kept having flashbacks of my life. That was when I realized that if I can overcome 3 strokes, have multiple seizures hourly and daily, have half of my brain taken out, and make my wildest dreams a reality, it's obvious to me that God wanted me to live this life for a reason. To share my story with others and tell how I made it this far. When I look back and when I hear my family tell me stories about how life was for us before the operation, I realize that I am a very blessed man. I've never considered myself lucky. I've always considered myself blessed. That was why at the age of 23 I decided to get baptized. Getting baptized for me was my way of telling God thank you for giving me life and the life that I do have. I never would have made it this far without my family, my friends, or God. I was born in a family that has loved and supported me in anything I have done or wanted to do. My family is great. They tell me every day that I am the strongest and bravest person that they know. And to hear that from them really means a lot. It helps me get out of bed every morning and live another day. Not only has my family been by my side, but one guy has been by my side, and that one guy is Kevin. Kevin and I have been best friends for 20 years. We have been through all the nonsense and chaos, and we have been through so much together and I know he has put up with me when I was not the greatest person to be around. Our friendship has a strong bond that we believe is unbreakable. You do not have to be blood to be family. Kevin is my brother, and he always will be. My family has always treated him like one of us. My grandparents, mom, brother, and sister have always introduced us as their grandsons, sons, or little brothers. His family has done the same for me. Both of his parents have been there whenever I needed help through some tough times. And all of his nieces and nephews call me Uncle Jake. Kevin and I both have something that the other needs, and that's what made our friendship so strong over the years. I have been through so much in the last 28 years. I have overcome obstacles that doctors thought I couldn't. At 28 years old, I do realize that I live a pretty complicated life. I know what my life is like, and I understand how my life works. I understand how my life was 20 years ago compared to how my life is now. It has changed so much. I went from a little boy going from one hospital after another, seeing doctor after doctor, to making my wildest dreams come true, winning multiple medals, ribbons, and individual awards in the Special Olympics. People I've met in the past have told me that I have done the impossible. I don't know about that. I'm a firm believer that anything is possible. A long time ago, I decided what dreams I had and I was going to go after them. And I did. Now I'm a champion, not only in sports, but in life as well. Thank you.